For 2 straight days, Mike Pence and Chuck Schumer traded proposals and sat face-to-face in a breakneck sequence of meetings to prevent and quickly end a government shutdown. In reality, though, the back-channel talks never stood a chance. The failure by two men with little shared history and no apparent personal chemistry highlighted a critical difference between this showdown and those in the past. For years under President Barack Obama, Vice President Joe Biden and Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell each maneuvered his party out of repeated political crises. But under President Donald Trump, who made no concerted effort to establish a genuine rapport with congressional Democrats, there's no such release valve. That's largely why the two sides find themselves with no obvious way out of a week-plus government shutdown that's threatening to stretch well into January. Pence and Schumer, DNY, approached the shutdown assignment under near impossible conditions, with Trump demanding his border wall money and Democrats just as insistent he not get it. On top of that, the schmoozing Brooklynite and but-end-up-whoosier lack a relationship that Biden and McConnell had built up over decades working together in the Senate. And they have minimal political space to strike a deal, as questions persist whether anyone, even the vice president, can negotiate on behalf of Trump. Privately, some Republicans said the talks between the vice president and the Senate minority leader looked like little more than a sideshow mounted to create the appearance of action. The whole thing is so ridiculous it is hard to imagine anything being serious, said one Republican senator of the Pence-Schumer talks. On the Friday before Christmas and with hours to spare before the deadline, it appeared that Pence and Schumer might have something. Rank-and-file Republicans persuaded the president to send Pence to the Capitol along with White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and senior advisor Jared Kushner. They met extensively with Schumer, and hopes rose that a shutdown could be averted. A senior White House official said Trump dispatched the trio to meet with Schumer, a move that came at the request of Sens. Cory Gardner, our Kahlo, and David Perdue, our GA, because of their experience negotiating on the Hill. A second aide suggested that Pence was doing the dirty work because Trump didn't want to be in a room with a New York Democrat after their relationship disintegrated during a stunning public squabble in the Oval Office earlier this month. The vice president was very direct about the position of the White House during their latest meeting, and he went down there to make sure that was communicated properly, the senior White House official told Politico. Yet Schumer didn't entirely buy that Pence had authority from the president to negotiate. Democrats say Trump's allies have offered so many different messages on the shutdown that they can hardly keep track, from the conciliatory words conveyed by Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders days before funding lapsed, to the hardline stance from House Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows, RNC, once the shutdown began. So when Schumer and Pence sat down on December 22, the last real substantive talks between Democrats and Republicans, hopes were dim that the two could strike a deal that could satisfy both the president and the Democratic base. And Pence's request for roughly half the $5 billion for the wall that the president wanted was quickly dismissed by Democrats. Senator Schumer made clear to the vice president, in private after their Saturday meeting, that the offer would not pass the Senate, and told the vice president that we would not consider any offer the president has not publicly endorsed, given that the president has changed his position so many times, said Justin Goodman, a spokesman for Schumer. Since then, it's been all blame game. White House officials have castigated Schumer and House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, D. Calif, for refusing to speak to them, and the Democrats have insisted that the White House can't seem to comprehend they won't bend on the border wall. Though Schumer has the instincts of a deal-maker, he's responded to his party's activist base by refusing to meet Trump even halfway on his border demands. The minority leader even rescinded a previous bipartisan compromise of $1.6 billion for fencing along the border, shaving it down to $1.3 billion, in line with Pelosi's figure. Pence, by all appearances, has little sway over Trump's bottom line. The vice president had strongly indicated to Republican senators that the president would sign a short-term spending bill into February that lacked wall spending, only to watch Trump disavow short-term fix. Democrats are skeptical that $2.5 billion, give or take, that Pence sought from Schumer earlier this month was blessed by Trump. A source close to Pence said the vice president was sent at the direction of Trump and had a respectful dialogue with Schumer, despite the absence of meaningful progress. I hope they made some progress. Mike can get along with anybody, and I think Chuck would, but I think he's got a different constituency, said Senator Pat Roberts, our can, referring to pressure on Schumer from the left. Schumer's office reassured progressive groups ahead of the meeting that he would not bend to Pence's position, said Angel Padilla, policy director for Indivisible. Padilla said ever since Schumer stopped advocating for the bipartisan bill and its $1.6 billion in fencing, the Democratic leader has stayed strong. He is Schumer, and we will always be concerned about a deal, Padilla said. We're with him as long he sticks to a bill to reopen the government without wall funding. But if he starts negotiating wall money, we're not with him. Some Democrats viewed Trump as so toxic his approval rating dropped to 39% in a Morning Consult survey released the day the government shut down that they have a hard time envisioning making any deal directly with him. That increases the importance of having a fallback between leaders like Pence and Schumer. But their relationship was practically non-existent until now. Schumer had left the House by the time Pence was elected in 2000. And though Pence, as Trump's number 2, frequently comes to the Capitol for weekly Senate GOP lunches, he doesn't stop by Schumer's office and rarely speaks to him by phone. Pence and Schumer have had few substantive discussions other than when Pence notifies congressional leaders of U.S. military action, according to a former Democratic leadership aide. It's not that they don't get along. Rather, Schumer and his party view the Trump White House as mercurial and uninterested in creating bipartisan relationships. I don't think this is personal or personality-driven. It all stems from the fact that this White House is not set up to have entrees to Democrats, the aide said. They could be best buddies and cook up the greatest deals and then walk into the Oval Office and the president could tell them to pound sand. Pence and Schumer will have more opportunities in the coming months to steer Washington away from crisis. The debt ceiling will expire sometime next year, creating the potential for a much more substantive financial crisis. Biden and McConnell clinched a deal in 2011 to avoid a default on the government debt, then a year later hatched an agreement to increase taxes on the wealthy. But the current vice president and minority leader have a ways to go to establish a working relationship. Asked whether there are any Senate Democrats with whom the vice president shares a close working relationship, a senior White House official deadpanned, he has a good relationship with Jeff Flake, the outgoing Republican Trump critic from Arizona.